When we try to improve in chess, we have to know the priority of the things we have to work on. What is the most important part of the game? By far, the opening. And the reason is, a lot of people say that, well, middle game, I'm very good at middle game, but I don't know any openings. There is no such a thing that very good at middle game and not good in the opening. You cannot be good in the middle game if your opening repertoire is poor, because when you learn the opening, you learn a lot about middle game, you prepare for middle game, you learn about strategy, and beginning all deeds of it in the opening. You plan it in the opening. When you play opening well, you're guaranteed good middle game, and then of course it's important to play middle game. You can be very good in the opening. If you are very good in the opening, that means you know the middle game you're gonna play. That's why what we're gonna do now, we already have an opening encyclopedia that we published. But now what we do, as you know, there is no opening ever existed that did not get updated. Modern theory keeps updating, upgrading, changing. So what we do in this series, we go over some updates, we improve some ideas for white, and as we improve, we have to remember that our opponents try to improve on their part, the counterplay. They find all different counterplays against the ideas we endorsed in our opening. So, and I'm going to introduce you to a lot of them, and actually all this series about novelties, new analysis, new observations, new researches, new ideas, and how to deal with them. And this is not only going to improve your opening repertoire, it's also going to improve your understanding of certain openings and understanding chess in general. So you cannot use opening without knowing what the updates are. Like in any part of the life, when you read the news changing every day. Opening is like news. It keeps changing, keeps updating, and we have to be on top of it. I've always recommended Accelerated Dragon as the main weapon for black against the e4. It's interesting that I've been playing it constantly myself, and this opening is not used by black too often on a highest level, although some very strong world's best players, they do play it, but it's not too often. Therefore, there are not too many articles and analysis about it published in the magazines. So, but every time I play, there is something new comes up very frequently. Not every time, but very frequently, something new is used against me by relatively good players, and I had to deal with it. Most of the ideas they use are not so good, but some of them, one out of every 2 or 3 ideas, are interesting, and I had to deal with it. And I want to share with you what is that they been finding for white and how we have to deal it against it for black. d4, cd, knight takes d4, knight c6, and I'm talking about knight c3 variation, not in Moroz's bind. Knight c3, bishop g7, bishop e3, knight f6, and of course I want to talk about the main variation, main move, bishop c4. We play queen a5 and move. The idea I want to talk about is knight b3. But knight b3 not in this position. Knight b3 after castling knight b3. Because, for those you may not know, knight b3 immediately is a really bad move, because now we can go queen to b4 and bishop is hanging on d3. Protecting with queen d3 is losing a piece, and if black plays bishop d3, if white plays bishop d3, then just they simply lose a pawn. Knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, bishop takes c3 check, pawn takes, queen takes e4. Black simply has extra pawn with no compensation. Well, this is all known, and that's not the novelty I wanted to talk about, obviously. Castle. Well, in knight b3, it's not a new move, but I want to introduce you a new approach, new way of dealing against it. So we have to go queen c7, and only move here that will make any sense is bishop g5. Well, bishop e2 was tried, and then we go b6. Now I'm going to show you interesting position. After f4, bishop b7, e5, knight e8, knight d5, queen d8. It looks like black is going backwards, and looks like white has very active position, but in reality, if you take very close look, black has an advantage in this position. Reason why? Because there is no way that white can stop black's move d7, d6, after which they will be forced to take on d6. Black knight is gonna take on d6, and black is gonna have very well coordinated pieces. Knight is gonna go to f5, rook to c8, and you can play with this position. I assure you, black is gonna have an advantage, not to mentioning the b2 pawn is hanging. So, and again, that's not what we want to discuss here. Well, this is just in case white goes bishop e2, then simply go b6 and bishop b7. But the main move in our concern in this position is move bishop to g5. a6 is, after careful analysis, I came to conclusion that a6 is the move. Well, the idea of move bishop g5 in case black goes d6, which is also, by the way, is not bad move, because if black takes on f6, we are not gonna take with the bishop, because knight d5 followed by knight takes f6. What we're gonna do, we're gonna take with the pawn, but then knight b5 and pawn is hanging on d6, and it's not clear what's going to happen after queen b6. Black is going to have some compensation, but we don't want to get into this analysis because that's not how we're going to play. Move I recommend is a6. And here white has a choice to play a4 to stop black's b5 move, or to go forward and play bishop takes f6 followed by knight d5. Move knight d5 right away does not promise any advantage to white, because of simply knight takes d5, pawn takes d5, and knight e5. And now bishop is hanging, bishop takes e7 loses simply after rook e8, and white has two bishops hanging. So knight d5 is not a good move here. But what would happen after bishop takes f6? Bishop takes f6 and knight d5. Now, white has absolutely no advantage here. Queen e5, and the best move here is knight takes f6, queen takes f6 and c3. But then after d6, black obviously has no problem at all. Now, just to help you understand this particular position, why those exchanges were good. Anytime good for black. Anytime you have some space disadvantage, it's okay to, and in this case, in Accelerated Dragon, black almost always has space disadvantage. It's good to exchange some minor pieces, and that's what we did. Now, if white tries to do something more, like f4, that's ambitious move. Taking on b2 is a little dangerous, and we are not going to do that. So if we're not going to do that, we don't really have to discuss it. We play queen takes to e4. And this is good for black, because after knight takes f6, pawn takes f6. We know black has raggedy pawn structure, but they have an extra pawn, and bishop eventually will be developed. I don't know what white has. White has probably nothing. On bishop d5, for example, we can go queen check followed by rook e8. We don't want white to play rook e1. Actually, if they play rook e1 in this case, we can exchange everything, and in this position we can simply go king f8, or maybe even knight b4. On rook check we can go king g7. This position is okay for black. On bishop e4 we could go f5, and bishop d3 maybe b6 followed by bishop b7. Well, but quieter way and safer way maybe to play here simply king f8. White has absolutely no advantage. It may be the other way around. So what we said now, this is not danger as I just showed it to you, but what happens if white goes a4? In this position, when we just played a6, what if they go a4? Now, if they go a4, I would recommend knight b4 move. Now, knight b4 stops forever bishop takes f6 and knight d5 as a threat, because it's not a threat anymore. We can always recapture. Also, we attacking the c4 bishop. Knight is very well posted on b4 after bishop e2. We can simply go b6, bishop b7, or d6 and bishop e6. Black has absolutely no problems here. Now, going back again, this is one idea in main variation. Now, another problem you may face
in Accelerated Dragon. In the move order on knight f3, I recommend, and I play myself, is g6 second move and not knight c6. Let me tell you the difference between these two moves. Most of the time, it makes no difference and it transposes. But there are some additional options we provide white if we go g6 or not, depending on which move we're going to make. Knight c6 allows bishop b5 variation, which is a big chapter in Sicilian today. There are a lot of games, a lot of various developments, and we are trying to avoid, and we play g6. But we did avoid bishop b5 variation, but we allowed a couple of other options. For instance, c3 and d4. And we also allowed an option d4 right away, cd, and queen takes d4. And this is one of the things one of the variations I wanted to discuss with you. Now, after queen takes d4, we're going to go knight f6. And we want to go knight c6 next move and gain some tempos on early developed queen. So the moves are here: bishop b5. All this already mentioned on a main Accelerated Dragon DVD. Bishop b5 and e5. I don't know of any other moves because there is no other move that would make any sense in this position. Because if white doesn't do that, and after knight c6 they have to go back with the queen, and it's just total waste of time. On bishop b5, we go a6, and we guaranteed to have a good position. I'm going to quickly run through this, what is happening after a6. If white goes bishop a4, then we go b5 followed by knight c6, and we're doing great. But if white goes e5, then we play pawn takes b5, pawn takes f6, knight c6. Most logical move, either queen b3 he has to play, or f takes e, attacking our queen. On queen to e3 or f takes e, in both variations, the key move for black here is the b4 move. Let me tell you what I mean by that. On queen e3, I want to play b4. We play b4 because we have to control c3 square. We don't want knight to be main player in this middle game position. We play b4, and after castling we go e6, and now you see that f6 is a big weakness, and it has bad position. Gonna lose a pawn. So the main continuation here is f takes e, queen takes e7, check, and queen e3. Actually, if white played here queen e3 and we play b4, and now white plays f takes e, we would have had a 100% transposition, identical position, castles, and now we have to exchange queens. You don't want to play this position with queens on the board. Bishop takes and bishop g7. This is very good position for black. I would say black has clear advantage, because after c3 they have to play c3. Important to notice that we don't take. We almost never take on c3. We go d5 followed by castling, or you can castle first. Let me tell you the difference. On d5, white may stop us from castling, but we're going to go bishop e6, and we're doing okay anyway. Or if we castle, instead. White may try to go bishop c5. Then we go rook e8, and after bishop d6, rook e6, we are doing also fine. So I would say it does not make much difference what move you play. d5, knight d4, and we castle. It's interesting that if white plays a3 here, it looks like we have to do something with a b pawn. No, we don't. B pawn is untouchable. If white wants to take on c6, we take back. So if white wants to take on b4, they have to take with the c pawn. And you can tell black has pair of very active bishops, and black is doing fine.